Hello Martin and all the viewers of your fishing channel. I was asked by Martin to do a question and answer for many of his viewers from around Europe, and I've selected quite a few of them here to hopefully answer as correctly as possible or to help you as much as I can. I'll crack on with a few of these questions. The first one is from Eerko Slagter in Holland. Hope I've pronounced your name right. It's a good question actually, and quite an in-depth question. It's all about feeder fishing on the big kind of continental shipping canals. You're basically asking me, when feeder fishing, does it make sense to feed two spots on the canal where there's a lot of heavy shipping, because it would seem very difficult to keep them active? And then he's basically said, wouldn't the spot that you're not feeding regularly just disappear? I wouldn't go too mad at the start. What I do is I tend to not measure by like 10 cages, because when you're baiting up with bait up feeders, you could be putting out 10 bait up feeders or 15 bait up feeders, or going really the whole hog and put in, say, bigger volumes and bigger cages. What I tend to do is I tend to measure my ground bait. And the reason why I do that is quite simple, because I use the EVA. There's lots of good EVA on the market, proper EVA. This one particularly is a pint measure. So I want to put, say, a pint of ground bait in. If that's the case, because of these shipping canals and I'm looking at feeding two lines, I think the best approach is to kind of feed them kind of regular casting, time it on your stopwatch, your phone, whatever, your cast, and how long you're leaving it in. And when these ships are coming over it, you tend to find the lines which are best. Maybe a short line to start on, the fish move out, or the fish come in to the shorter line later. A lot of that you'll find through trial and error. But it tends to be you fishing off the near shelf and in the deeper water towards where the boats are. So what I would do is, the reason why I don't do the big cages to start with and count the cages is because you've got to take into consideration you're actually putting the loose feed in there, you're putting the worms or the casters in there, the maggots, etc. So what I do is I measure, I'd say, a pint of ground bait. If I'm looking at feeding, say, a pint of ground bait on each line, and then I'm going to do regular casting. Because those fish, as much as the ground bait will be disrupted, the fish will stay there. Believe me, they stay there. But what you'll find is that the fish will stay in the locality, and the minute that feeder starts going in, they're in that area because they know there's feed there or it's been there, and they'll kind of come back in. The minute your feed goes back in, your regular casting, before you know it, you've put in 2 or 3 cages out, let's say within a 10-minute period, you'll start getting bites again. Much the same like there's on our canals when we top up with just a small nugget of ground bait, or we start loose feeding again. It's kind of the same scenario. So I kind of start off with a measured amount. So that being my measured amount of ground bait, and however many chop worms, casters and mixers are mixed to add to the ground bait in the middle of the feeder will depend on obviously the kind of weight we're expecting, or how I'm feeling my way through the match and how it's going. If it's hard, I'll maybe cut back on the amount of loose feed, maybe wait longer, or I might start casting more regularly, because that's where the stopwatch is important, because you'll gauge your time per bite and how many fish and the size of the fish and what you're fishing for and so on, and of course how many boats there is. And then you can, on other waters, you can go up to 2 pint or 3 pint measures, but that's how I do my ground bait on those kind of waters, because they are disrupted. But believe me, I think it worries the anglers more than it does the fish. So hopefully, Eerko, that's answered that one as best as possible.